back in Series 1, we were actually locked down and we couldn't get into our location today.
We did return briefly for some ghost stories, but we thought we'd come back to go deep underground today.
It's a site we've spoken about a great deal on the Hangouts, but we haven't actually showed you that much of it.
So today we've come back to show you a bit more. Today we're at Clapham South Deep Level Shelter.
In this week's episode.
Oh my god, I mean, they are, oh my god, look at them.
What's beneath your feet is massive. Absolutely huge.
Not the most glamorous one. Feels off limits.
On my first visit here, this is where Chris pranked me, because I said, oh, what happens if I push that?
This massive concrete rotunda, and that's designed to be bomb-proof. But here, if your stuff fails, you're in darkness.
So it's a gorgeous autumn day here in South London, just with an eye shot of Clapham South Station. And we're here to talk war, really, aren't we?
Yeah. So the catalyst for this being built was the Blitz, really, and in particular, just down the road, an enormous bomb punching through the road, exploding the top of the tube and the water main and the sewer, and nearly 70 people drowned in all of that liquid filth that flowed into the station at Balham where they were trapped.
So this was an idea to protect people deep down underground, but it might have had use later on, maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's some evidence that it could have been, but really when it was built, they kind of absolved themselves of all responsibility towards doing anything with it after the war. But essentially, the tube wasn't fit for purpose to be a shelter for all. It was good in some regards, but terrible in others, especially when it came to things like toilets, water, food, etc. We talked about it on the Piccadilly Circus stuff, that it wasn't perfect, and the Balham disaster on the 13th of October 1940 just showed that in all of its, you know,
horror, really. And so the government appointed London Transport to build originally 10 of these deep level shelters. If you want to know more about it, there's a rather excellent chapter in the Hidden London book which covers it. But they ended up building 8, 4 in the north, 4 in the south, and this is one of them. Right. What's beneath your feet is massive. Absolutely huge, designed for 8,000 people. And if you look at the design behind us, it's quite brutal and functional. Yeah. You've got this massive concrete rotunda, and that's designed to be bomb-proof for anything that was envisaged in the Second World War. And then off the side of it, you've got these brick structures just here, which are the stairs which lead into it, because it's off the ground in case a bomb hit a water main and flooded the area. It meant that the water couldn't flood down into there. And then at the front, you've got this blockhouse. And that is the way that you would have gone in originally.
Yeah.
To say, there were several entrances into these underground shelters. This was a ticketed event, wasn't it? You had to have a ticket to get in there to be protected.
That's right. So you either had a walk-up ticket, a little one, or a slightly larger one that was a season ticket, effectively. If you'd been bombed out, you could have one.
So you know what, every time, and I mean, I have been here many times, but every time I come to this structure, particularly this one on the common, just because the other one's cleverly disguised into the fabric of a building, it does shock me how tall this structure is, how sturdy it is, how inconspicuous it is. However, you know, you kind of wouldn't notice it unless somebody points it out to you. Even though when you see it, you're like, oh yeah, what is that?
And bluntly, how ugly it is. It doesn't look very nice at all.
I mean, there are people who've lived around here all their lives who still surprised to find out what it is when you tell them.
Well, especially I think buildings like these, I think we just kind of automatically write them off as being electricity substations or something functional for the community, not a Second World War deep shelter that's 40 metres below ground.
Years ago, I remember coming past here when we were taking one of our buses on the London to Brighton run and seeing it, having no idea what it was, not really paying it any attention. So all these years later, in 2014, when I got the opportunity to come and visit the site and to take the site on after it had been an archive, I was just astonished when I finally got to see what was inside.
And that's a really crucial point, isn't it? Because this is now part of the London Transport Museum. It's not a site for urbexes, this is a museum.
It's London Transport Museum's third site
right.
now, since 2014 when we took it on. And we can do a bit more of that story when we go inside.
I was going to say, it's the secret site. Let's go downstairs, have a look at some of the places that perhaps the tours that you run aren't going to show, and learn a little bit more about it as well.
Cool, let's do it.
Come on, Law, come on.
All right, let's go in.
It's funny, I've been here so many times and yet it still feels eerie. I mean, even like the buttons are taped up. It's completely out of service.
It is out of service. Yeah, do not press those. They're coming. They're coming.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
So that's one of my current projects, shall we say?
Get the lift working.
Yeah. So 2014, we first came to the site. I came and explored it with another museum colleague, Mike. And at the time, it was a derelict archive. They'd moved out of the archive; it was no longer suitable. And we had no maps, we had no plan or anything of the site, and we had to work our way around and make sense of it, because it's really easy to get lost, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks very similar.
And I've still got the pencil-drawn, hand-drawn map that I did while we were down here for about 4 hours trying to work it out. And
I mean, we worked off that for a very, very long time.
Oh yeah, we did. We used that for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And
That's
this is,
quite good.
I mean, to give you an idea of the size, you said earlier 8,000 people could sleep down here at night. That's, I mean, I've been here before. It's epically large, isn't it?
well, it's about half a mile of tunnel, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about 6. Yeah.
That we do on the tour.
Well, that we do on the
it's
tour, and then
probably double
another
that
mile. Yeah. So it's 2 parallel tunnels split into half. Each one of them is about 416 meters or so. So
about 460. I love your precision.
I did put a trundle wheel on it when we first got it.
So we're talking in total, it's over a mile of floor space down here.
Incredible.
Which is a little different.
And it was built really out of bits, wasn't it? Because it was wartime, so it was stuff that was just left over.
Yeah, and we had to get to know the site, embrace its dereliction, and try and fix it. And we were running tours by the middle of 2015.
October 2015.
Approximately.
We were doing the work here.
Approximately.
So I remember it very vividly because it was the 1st of October. I was delivering on the first day, and I got a cycle hire bike, but like didn't know really where I was going or anything, and got lost and only made it with 5 minutes to spare. So 1st of October 2015, guys, was when we opened.
I love it. And when she says a delivery, by the way, she was delivering a tour, not a pizza, just to say this.
Oh, yes.
And it's a product that's a work in progress. You're still doing work on the place.
But ever since then, you've been able to come on a public tour here, and we'll show you around the site and tell you the history of it. But, as you say, we're still working on it. That lift, that's about a 60 grand project to get that back into life.
It's an expensive toy, isn't it, really? But we've got plenty to see today. Could you do me a favour? Could you just hit that sound? Because this will just take you to the essence of what war must have felt like in London.
So this is something we play for people when they come here on a tour.
I mean, just imagine that moment. Just imagine that moment when you hear this sound and you want to run for cover. I just think this is where you headed for. It is the most evocative sound.
Well, wait until you start walking down with
Let's
that
do it, let's do
background
it.
sound. That really gives you a flavour of what it must have been like.
It's like the worst kind of fire drill, isn't it? Now, this is your baby, guys. There's going to be a whole lot less of me in this episode, I can tell you, because this is your thing. And actually, I think, Nixie, there might actually be quite a bit of you today, because you are effectively the in-house historian, aren't you? You are the manager of the place.
Well, he's the he's the tenant.
Landlord?
Site manager. Yeah.
Amazing.
I think of myself as the custodian of it.
Nice.
Because it really is like that. This place takes a lot of looking after.
But it is a bit of a labour of love for you, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It has been, and our aim is to try and get this site back to closer to how it was when it finished its service.
Well, you've already been doing that. For example, this lighting that we see coming down here, so we've replaced all of the original bulkhead lights with, they're LED bulbs, right? But we've found the right warmth of the light. So
it's a huge bit of work. So we used to have some really horrible kind of modern plastic,
fluorescent
lights.
Yeah.
It's quite stark, wasn't it? But this, what you're saying now, is what people using the shelter would have seen.
Yeah.
Can I just ask as well, how many stairs down is this?
180.
180?
Yeah.
Because I mean, it just feels like it goes on forever. But then at the same time, there were bombs raining down at street level, so you had to be a long way down.
And also, I think we've talked about this in another episode, but this is a double helix staircase.
Yeah.
So you can see on the other side, that's where people going to the lower level would have been.
We've got to come back up here, haven't we? Can you get that lift working sharpish, Nixie?
Not in time for us to go back up, I'm afraid.
Crikey.
Yeah, the descent's a lot more favourable on the legs than the ascent.
So imagine the first time we were doing this, when the lights weren't working, with torches. I know that's how some people like to explore. I know I did, but it's a lot easier with the lights.
My goodness.
Well, and it just gives us such a nicer atmosphere to have this level of authentic lighting outside.
Do you know, I don't know what it is, but there's a beeping noise. It is, again, it's one of those things that is so evocative down here.
Oh, that's the machine that goes beep.
Yeah. It's the beeping machine.
It's a
Is
fire
it really?
panel.
It's generally for my scripts, is it? Look at this. You see, this is the other thing, isn't it? There's so much of these original artefacts here.
Yeah.
Was this like it when you got here, when you first saw the place? Was this all
It was
still
a
hanging
little
up?
bit grimier. We've kind of wiped it down, but yeah, and it's actually a slightly later piece of signage. It's not. We don't think they were done for wartime, these, because we've got photos of the wartime ones, but it's certainly very old. We think early 50s.
All right.
Perhaps.
LPTB tunnel rings as well. London Passenger Transport Board.
That's right.
Yeah, and then you've got off to the side here, you've got Hardy, you've got, oh my god, I mean they are, oh my god, look at the length of that. That's incredible.
It's quite a big old space, that one.
And then, of course, we come here to just an average bomb.
Yeah, so I mentioned at the when we were up at the surface, you know, one of the key triggers for this site being built and the others with it was this over here.
This is
which
Balham.
is the Balham Hill bomb. And just for scale, really, we have this one here, which we're bringing in for a new bit of experience here on the tour. And this is a 250 kilo German bomb.
Crikey.
And the one that did that in that photo was about £1,400 bomb. So a lot bigger.
All right. Yeah. Well, this is, I mean, it's great. There's a smell about this place, isn't there, Laura?
I was just saying, I haven't been down here for a while, but you can always
kind of
familiar dusty aroma. Yeah.
It's very strange. My sense of smell is really weak, and I can smell it, and so it must be pretty pungent. But as I say, the idea of today is we're going to. There is a tour that you can go around here. Lovely, lovely. You guys are brilliant. Thank you. But we're going to go to some of the places that could never be on the tour, aren't they?
That's right. So on the tour, we'll take you around. We'll explain how the site was built, how people would have lived here for its original purpose as a deep level shelter, see some of the bunks and the kind of living environment that they would have been in. The toilets. Always the toilets within London. But there are some places which are just a bit too raw. Some of the plant areas that we know our viewers on London Hangouts like to see.
Are you talking about the power?
Yeah.
Oh my god! Right, you have to watch this bit. It's so good.
So this is a really good companion thing. If you want to come on the tour, you can get to see some of the bits that you won't see on the tour, and you can still enjoy all of the tour.
Fab. Well, guys, it's over to you. I'll pop up occasionally, but this is your baby, so over to you guys. Enjoy.
Okie dokie.
Where are you going
Well,
first?
I think we should go this way.
All right.
It really is an incredible place. It's just so evocative.
I find it very cosy.
Right, check.
So you might recognise this space from Siddy's slideshow in our Series 1 episode.
And you were saying about this being a bit of a work in progress. I mean, there's bits everywhere, isn't there? There's pipe benders, there's cables, this is fireproof.
We've got a good example of how this place used to be lit before we started this project. So you see these fluorescent bulbs. They're not quite... They don't give you the same kind of warm, fuzzy feeling as the ones upstairs. So we are rewiring this whole place, putting up better lighting.
And when Siddy uses the royal we to say that we're rewiring it,
it's actually Martin.
Our lovely colleague Martin has been down here now for some time to do this. And
the royal we.
So just introduce you to Martin, who has been the excellent conservation electrician who's been at work on this site for us. So Martin, how many years since you first came down here?
Good morning. I think it's about 5 years now, maybe 4, something like that.
And you've been working your magic with the electrical equipment down here to try and get it back to more how it was. And this shelter here, Hardy, is probably one of the best examples, isn't it?
I think it probably is one of the best examples of what we were up against, what we found. Basically, the problem that you have with the whole site is so much of it has been ripped out and removed and thrown away over the years. Yeah, you're trying to get back to a 1940s layout and what we think was how it was all laid out and how it was supplied. And the difficulties with that is just how much is missing and what's not there. And also in the 1980s and 1990s, when they were doing it for document storage and archiving, it was just fluorescent lights, and the whole site was fluorescent lights.
And when I first came to this site to explore it, there was one magic trick that these fluorescent lights gave in this space here, and it was to sort of give the impression of the depth of it. Do you mind just popping the fluorescence on? So they did that kind of amazing light show.
They did, yeah, and you never know. It's one of these things that when we first turned it on, you didn't know quite where it was going to stop, and people, when they come for the first time, still get that you don't know where it's going to stop. Yeah. So it's a little bit James Bondy almost, where you have this, Mission Impossible, where the lights come on and on and on and on.
I remember when I first saw that, I went wow, and when we were first designing a tour here, it was a moment that we knew we had to try and keep. And indeed many audiences have gone wow since. But the problem is that these units are absolutely, well, they're done really, aren't they?
They have. They're well over their life expectancy for run hours and for just time since they've been made.
And so we had to replace them and wanted to replace them with more typical lights. Which would be bulkheads, like that one.
It was all bulkheads across the whole site. There was no such thing as a fluorescent tube. So the whole of the site, and then powered 2 different ways. So you had an AC power and then a DC power.
Yeah, so a sort of emergency supply, so you'd never be left in darkness. So our challenge was to try and work out how to give something that replicated that. When I first started talking to technical people, I remember being quoted all sorts of things about computer-controlled light shows and cores of wires heading off down there. And
you can always go high-tech. There's always an expensive high-tech solution, but sometimes low-tech is just where you want to be.
You and I are a bit more kind of analog than that, aren't we?
We are.
So
dinosaurs. Okay, yeah.
So we started talking relays.
Yep.
And timer relays, and
well, we did, and we meant, and it was the fact of wanting to be able to keep everything at the right voltage, because we were trying to keep the whole thing at 12 volts so we could have emergency power. It was trying to keep everything in line and as original as possible, and the best way to do that was simply to use a 12-volt timer relay, which we did in every single lamp unit.
So basically, the first one goes on, and then that will send the power to the next one with a short time delay. And that in turn sends it to the next one with a short time delay. And well, should we have a look?
And then to get the full effect, we have a few second delay.
And there we go. Much more natural light in here now, isn't it, as well? So much more authentic.
This is the first time people get to experience just how long these shelters are.
And even on screen, you just don't get the sense of the depth of this place.
No, the depth is...
You really have to come and visit.
Absolutely, yeah. More the merrier.
Well, thank you. It's, I mean, this is just one of the many challenges that we've faced here, and that
there's been a few little challenges to overcome over the years, and because it is a tunnel system. It's normally while working on a museum or in a modern space, you have the issue where if your stuff fails, then you just rely on what was already there in the building. But here, if your stuff fails, you're in darkness. So you've really got to make it right and work out a decent way. And we've done that over the years.
The thing with it is there's so many different layers here.
Yeah.
You know, we love a witness mark, right? But there are so many to try and work out which were the original conduits, where the bulkhead light should go back. And Martin's been doing a phenomenal and very difficult job replacing conduit where it's gone.
Conduit is the pipes that cables run in, isn't it?
Just it's this clear. Stuff, and that might be original. That stuff is new, but in the place of an original. If I just show you this is how we've been having to decode the site.
Plug boys,
you see
press it again.
There's a turnout.
Cables.
Just there.
Yeah.
Remember how much they love plugs?
Oh, all right. So we're getting ribbed for being plug obsessed, but this is a lamp, not a plug. And you can just see where the witness mark was for the screws to hold the bulkhead lamp, the original one. So when Martin replaces this tube, it'll be with an original bulkhead
light, which may be one of the ones that we've got from another deep level shelter.
That's right.
That we went and got one afternoon.
Yes.
But if you remember, this space is where we set dressed. So we had the lovely lanterns hanging down and the tables with the green cloths that kind of supported our mini film screening and tour, one of our events. So this, obviously looks very different now.
It does, yeah.
So ordinarily, if we were here on a tour, we'd be going in there to talk about the grimness of the toilets.
We would.
Today, thankfully, we don't have to do that, but what we are going to do...
The grimness of the plant room.
Should we do it? Can I go? Can I do it?
It is spectacular.
This is the spookiest part of this site for sure. Not that it's spooky, but it definitely feels off limit.
On my first visit here, this is where Chris pranked me.
Did I?
You did. Yeah.
I'm kind of proud. What did I prank? Keep going now.
It's so steep, this set of stairs, and it's down to the dankest part of the place, really, isn't it?
It really is.
Dankest.
Sometimes the dankest aren't best.
Do you know, look at that. I mean, this is the width of the fan. This is the fan that used to take the air out of the place, right? That is the width of it.
Yep.
Gonna light you up.
One of the fans, thank you very much.
4 of these babies.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is only fan 2.
This is incredible. And then, of course, through here is the bit that kind of fascinates me, because this is the power room, the plant room.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the second fan would have been just here, above you.
Yeah.
It's...
Yikes.
Yeah.
Goodness.
I had a lot of water ingress in there until about 3 years ago, so it looks horrendous.
And look at this. I mean, look.
And just off to the sides, you've got these vent ducts, one on that side and one on that side, which comes from the shelters, and then these fans suck the air out up to the surface level.
You know, I think we've spoken about it before, but the people that we have talked to that were children living down here at the time said that it was really cold in here. Really
Welcome
fresh.
to my workshop. This is the most bizarre thing. I mean, look at the gubbins in here, though, guys. Look at that. I mean, that's the generator.
Right, okay.
No, it's not.
That is a transformer.
Yep.
Heavens.
And just to the side of it, if we can come over here, you've got another part of electrical equipment, which is a mercury arc rectifier. They're quite rare, those things. If you want to see one of those working, Kempton Park Steam Museum. Shout out to you, got a pair of them working there.
Incredible.
They sort of glow purple. They're amazing.
This is all to do with the fact that at some point the power was coming off the tube, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. This is about converting mains power into DC power, from AC to DC, so that it's compatible with the electrical systems that
the old gauges
the
there.
tube
I was
uses.
going to do it and then I realised.
Well, this is where Chris pranked me, because I said, oh, what happens if I push that? And he said, try it and see. So I went to push it and he went, don't! Like that. And I absolutely freaked out.
I get these rare moments
Right?
of...
Do you remember?
I do.
I genuinely thought I was going to, yeah.
I was there thinking, when did I manage to prank you? It's a rare event.
Can I ask one thing that I don't think I've noticed before? Look at that little pot.
Well, that's because for cooling, these transformers were filled with oil. And so when they're no longer in use, the oil has to be drained. And so that's just there as a drip tray.
Yeah, but whose pot is that?
I don't know, but I'm guessing...
Would you like it? It's a nice little milk pan, isn't it, for somebody? But
Lovely little addition to the
Sauce pot.
kitchen.
that's me.
So
You're such a little sauce pot.
Such a little sauce pot.
My favourite thing about this is this would have been probably the biggest fire hazard down here when it was originally made. And so because of that, can you see there's a big red cylinder at the back?
Yeah.
Right, and just here, you've got a sort of a screw thread tap off, another one there, and there's one back here as well. And Siddy, could you grab one of the Luxons off the bench, please? So this was part of quite an elaborate fire suppression system. So that would have been screwed on here originally and acting like a fire extinguisher horn, because that cylinder is CO2.
Wow.
And if there had been a fire, these doors would have been shut, of course, but if there'd been a fire, then the people who worked here would have pulled this emergency handle.
There's stuff everywhere.
Emergency handle, and that would have released the CO2 to suppress the fire. And I'm guessing you'd
Kill anyone in here?
Yeah, you'd run out of here pretty fast, because you wouldn't be able to breathe for very long in here.
But this is like the control centre, isn't it? This is like the beating heart of the shelter.
Yeah.
And then the bunker's the kind of veins running off it, filling with the people, and then that's your story.
Yeah.
And the thing is, this was actually in remarkably good condition when we first came here in 2014. All of that water ingress just means it's gone rotten.
It was drippity drip for quite some time.
But if you go to our depot, we do have examples of these things because they're perfectly standard underground equipment. So we've got baby brother of one of those cabinets, we've got mercury arc rectifiers, and they're amazing things to see.
Yeah.
Right, should we go and see some stairs?
Let's.
So, this is another bit that's a bit too tricky to do on the tour, isn't it? We don't
Clapham has all been monumentally unfit, just running up those flights of stairs.
If you could walk through walls, you would find yourself in Clapham South station if you could go through that, but it's quite thick and you can't.
Not going to happen.
We're not going to tell you where it is on the
We're not
station.
going to tell you where it is. But you know, there is very clear marks that this once wasn't bricked up, because you see all of this dirt that's here to the sides would have been blown in from the tube.
Yep.
So it does bear the marks of having been open once upon a time.
And so this is roughly halfway down the length of the shelter, and used to be the intended emergency connection into the station. So it had originally had the entrance on the common, the entrance that we use today, and then this central one as well. So because there's a double helix of stairs in each of those two main entrances, it meant there are actually 5 staircases into this place. Yeah. And we found out, didn't we, that although it's supposed to be an emergency entrance, actually they let people use it if they were getting the tube.
It's one of my favourite places in Clapham South deep level shelter, unusually. I think because visually it kind of represents that punctuation in what else is kind of quite visually repetitive in terms of the actual bunker. Yeah. And then physically it's the bit that connects.
Yeah.
And I like that.
And also just the view from here and down, you can really get a sense of what it would have been like to get off a tube train and literally walk through these doors that would have been here, these double doors, and that's what you would have seen going down into the shelter to be there for the night. It's
almost a grander sense of arrival, isn't it?
Yeah, much more so. And also think about, you know, if you were going to work in the morning and you were going to catch the tube anyway, wouldn't you rather, wouldn't you rather just do it via these stairs?
One of the things as well that we found, it wasn't just the people that could connect here. We realised it's not marked on any diagram, but that's actually the cableway from the station to those plant rooms that we've been into. That's
a little bit of a hub.
So it's quite hot up here, isn't it? Because the air's got nowhere to go. Should we walk down?
I think so.
Yep.
So just talking about the people who lived here. Obviously it was built for the wartime, But that wasn't the only story, was it?
No. No, I mean, because these had been so monumentally expensive to build, and the government had poured all of this money into it, after the war, they figured, well, we might as well keep them open and let people stay in them for a price. So they became like, well, this became like a hostel or a hotel. Yeah. Not the most glamorous one.
I know, I'm thinking how, I don't know.
But the thing
expectation-wise, if it's what you'd be thinking you'd be getting for your penny hotel.
But the problem is that after the Second World War, so many buildings have been destroyed, you know, over 1 million buildings.
Yeah.
You'd take what you could get, to be honest.
And families who lost their homes would use this as a place to sleep at night, even after the war. Of course, a whole host of people used it as a hostel, and it came in very useful in 1948 as well, didn't it? With Empire Windrush, over 200 people with nowhere to stay when that first arrived, and this was their temporary home. And labour exchange as well. Yeah,
really put a kind of its mark on the culture of South London, in particular this area and the neighbouring Brixton, because a lot of those, a lot of the people from Windrush came to this site and then would move to the neighbouring areas. And
it very much symbolises protection, doesn't it?
It does.
Shelter, protection, safety.
I've never once felt spooked out here. I've been here on my own a lot from the beginning while we were sorting
this
it out.
This is why Alex at the top, when he said he felt eerie, I wondered where that was from.
Because I knew this place was always built to protect people. I've always felt safe here. It has, despite the fact it's very grungy and well worn, I've always felt incredibly safe and protected here.
A few wears and tears.
Indeed.
Same for me, but with the only exception of when we had to walk through the entire site and turn the lights off after each day, remember that? And then you'd have one torch and you're walking the equivalent of like 400 metres by yourself in an underground structure in the dark. All sorts of things start coming to your mind.
The other thing is, I can't walk down these stairs without thinking of that propaganda shot that was taken in the war, which is because it's a great view looking up, isn't it? And that was the shot with a couple of members of staff walking down the stairs. So.
I love the rumble of the Northern Line so close as well. I know that's not really, maybe, you know, when you were sheltering, the nicest noise to have, but I always feel like things are close by, safety is kind of close by.
Right.
And of course, just through here, if we walk through, we'll see where people stayed. Because of course they had to have somewhere to sleep, didn't they? And so they had these bunks. So there we go.
But there was more than just people that stayed down here.
Oh, wow.
They also had archives. So.
Yeah, and you've got some evidence of it just there, the recall barcodes on the side of the beds.
But actually, if we go upstairs, we've got a better example of what that looks like.
Yeah, let's do that.
I've got one question, and Nixie, you and I have been such good friends for so long. I've lost track of the number of times you've said to me, we've had a break-in at Clapham South.
Yeah.
This has gone wrong. They've got billed for this. Now, bearing in mind, at the beginning of the episode, we said this is now a museum. This is money from the museum that is being spent fixing stuff. Part of the reason we do this, guys, is so that we don't need to have this place broken into. That's the point of it, isn't it? We show you the stuff so you don't have to break in.
You can book a tour. Anybody can book a tour to come and see it.
This isn't a derelict site anymore. No. This is like breaking into a museum.
Yeah. So have you got a price ticket on this then? How much have you spent?
So yeah, during lockdown 1, the site got broken into and lots of stuff was posted by 2 or 3 Urbex groups on websites and on YouTube. The frustrating thing about it is they started their videos by saying they'd found the site open. Now, myself and a colleague were down here the day before and we know it was locked. And strangely, when we came back to sort it out, the door had been bent and broken beyond repair. So yeah, there was a £5,000 bill to deal with the repairs. And if that wasn't frustrating enough, the videos that were posted showed things that just weren't true. And
it was, so that box up there is not Lord Lucan's record.
Right. So
and that one there is not the moon man.
These are our jokes that we put up because this has been here for 7 years.
So my personal favourite was one of the groups saw this, they came up into it and saw that. This was a joke that I wrote on a label.
Literally
probably
just
about 5 minutes before the first tour back in 2015, and there's a few others as well.
It was just us finding, you know, because this used to be an archive, it was a joke to kind of jolt people's memories.
Yeah.
At the end of the tour, that this used to be an archive. So
the sad thing is reading down the comments with people going, "Oh man, I knew that was true."
It's like, oh jeez.
The other thing that was said in one of them was the barcodes on a lot of these from when it was an archive.
Yeah.
And so one of the channels, they were zooming in on that, going, "Oh, this must be a morgue or a secret government facility for COVID."
Yeah. but that was funny. They said it was a secret government facility for COVID, but then walked into one of our places where we have a projector and we show a bit of archive material, and it actually has my voice over it, and even shows the London Transport Museum. So it's like, well, which is it? Is it a museum site or is it a secret government?
It was a museum site. I guess the most frustrating thing about the break-in was the cost and the time spent in dealing with it. I'm glad we've got the site nice and secure again now, but if you want to come and visit, just book a tour.
Yeah.
It's a museum now and has been since 2015.
Well, all I will say is I'm really glad that you had the keys and you let us in today, because I don't know, I think this is a really cool look around this place, and it's really nice to be able to see the places that are not part of the tour as well. So it all kind of lends into one another. If you want more of the background, go back to series 1 of the Hidden London Hangouts, where we did a proper deep dive from our lounges. Remember that, guys?
Indeed.
But what a lovely trip. So just to confirm, that's not Lord Lucan's details.
Oh, it might be. You have to come on the tour to find out.
Yeah, there you
Tees, Chris Nix, City Holloway, Laura Hilton Brown, thank you so very much for being part of this as always today. If you like what we do, find us on Instagram, Alex Grunton, Chris Nix, City Holloway, Hidden London Law, and at LT Museum. Thanks for finding us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and comment down below. And we'll be back in a really cool location next week. Have yourself a great day and stay safe.